Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily and hope everyone is staying safe during this time of quarantine and practicing social distancing. Because I have so much free time on my hand now because all my university classes are online and I've just been chilling at home, so I watched this Korean drama called Crash Landing on You on Netflix, and I personally really loved the drama, and I knew it was a huge deal when it first came out, end of last year and beginning of this year, and I think it was such a well-rated drama. It's the second highest rated Korean drama in Korean cable television history, which is a pretty big deal. And then every time there's a new episode that came out, it was always trending on Twitter or the Chinese Twitter Weibo. And apparently when the finale happened, the Chinese website that was supporting this drama literally crashed because everyone was trying to see the show. And I think the show is really good. So basically this show was about this really famous and wealthy CEO of a fashion company from South Korea. Her name is Yoon Se-rin, and she was paragliding one day, but then a storm hit, so she ended up in the DMZ and ran into the North Korean military officer who was patrolling the borders. His name is Ri Jung-hyuk, and that's how they met, and it's basically a love story between them. Just a warning, there will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't seen the show and you don't want to know what happened, like, don't watch this video yet, like go see the show and then come back, because I'm gonna be talking about why I think this show was such a huge success and what are the specific factors that really appealed to people. I think, well, first of all, there are very obvious reasons. For example, like the main cast are so attractive and insanely talented. Hyunbin and Song Ye-jin, they have such good chemistry on screen and off screen, so I think there are fans supporting them like in their fictional world and in the real world. So I think, like, other than the fact that all the cast are talented and just eye candy, I think there are a lot of reasons that we don't necessarily see, like when we don't necessarily recognize when we first see this show, but I wanted to just point this out and then talk about, like, this is how you make a quality Korean drama. Well, first of all, I think there's a lot of stigma around Korean drama. Even until this day, a lot of people don't want to watch them because they think that they're too long, like they drag out their plot, they over romanticize things, and it's very unrealistic. And honestly, that's true. Like, a lot of the times, because I don't even watch that many K-dramas, because sometimes they drag out one scene for so, like, if you ever seen a K-drama, you know that if the main protagonist kiss for the first time, you're gonna see that kiss on replay at least 5 times in the same scene, because that's just how they shoot it, in like slow-mo with snow falling down, like all that stuff. Like, that's the aesthetic of K-drama. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the style and it works, it appeals to people. And obviously Crash Landing on You is like guilty of the same things, but I think there are a lot of things that can make you overlook these over romanticization if that's something you're not into. I think this show was a blend of many different genres, which is what kind of lured me in the first place, because the show kind of started with talking about this super powerful, rich, successful South Korean woman who is running her own company, like independent power woman vibes, and then you think this is going to turn into a drama, but then she ends up in North Korea, and then there's this whole chase thing that happens that turns into an action movie, and then it's a rom-com when the two main characters, you know, like interact and then slowly fall in love with each other. And it's also crime because there are subplots involved in this drama and there's so many things going on, and then each episode unravels a little bit and a little bit more. So I think that's why the show was interesting and entertaining for me the entire time, because I never really knew what was gonna happen. So now I'm gonna like go deep into like the 3 main reasons I think that made this show really popular. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about the casting. I think they chose age-appropriate actors for their roles, which I really appreciated, because I believe both Hyunbin and Song Ye-jin, they are in their late 30s, like 38, 37, and the characters they're portraying, one is a successful CEO who probably, you know, you can't just become like a CEO of a global company at the age of 22, so it perfectly made sense that she was someone who's near her 40s. And for Hyunbin's character, he was a military officer, so he wasn't just a random like scrawny little boy who just got into the military, so it made sense that both of them were slightly older. And I think that was important to me because if you think about it, I think especially in Hollywood, actresses usually have a shorter career lifespan compared to their male counterparts. There are just a lot more roles offered to older or middle-aged men, and there aren't as many stories that talk about women in their late 40s. And these women usually just jump from, especially in China too, women usually just jump from playing either, high schoolers, college students, or all the way just to someone's mom. Like there's no in between. Like what is this middle period where they're supposed to be, building their career or figuring out who they are, finding someone they love. Like where is that story? I don't ever really see it. If you think about last year's biggest Hollywood films, The Irishman, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, both of these films are very heavily male-centric because one is a gangster film, one of them is about friendship between men in the 60s, but it's just a narrative that we've seen so many times. Like, if you think about it, do you remember a time where you saw a full-on woman cast where they're all in their late 30s or 40s or 50s doing something together other than chasing after men or falling in love with someone or pining after someone? Like I don't recall, at least in my memory at all. I can't recall a single show or movie, which I think is really sad and problematic, and it's something that we should change. And I'm really glad this K-drama is, casting people at their appropriate age instead of trying to make a 20-year-old play someone who is supposed to be almost 40. Okay, moving on to my next reason. I feel like that kind of turned into my rant about woman representation in film, but so the second reason is that this character did a really good job of humanizing all the characters. And the show actually hired a North Korean defector. He studied film back in North Korea, and he served as, I think, the security forces for the Kims, but he decided to defect because I think he got into trouble for something and then didn't want to face the consequences if he went back. So I think his family is still in North Korea, which is really sad that he had to make that decision. But basically he was an advisor on this show, and I think he tried his best to make the portrayal of North Koreans as realistic as possible. And I think it's been receiving positive responses from North Korean defectors in South Korea as well. So I really appreciate that they took the initiative and the time to present a relatively objective view of North Korea instead of trying to vilify them. So first of all, I want to talk about the North Korean villagers, like the village where the main characters lived in. There's this group of older women, and they're always together. Basically, like when we first meet them on the show, I believe they were making kimchi, or they were preparing for it, because Hyun-bin's character is about to come back from his shift at the border, and they were all fangirling over him, obsessing over him. So that's why they were making kimchi. And at first I was like, oh my god, this is another kind of bland portrayal of middle-aged women who only know how to gossip. And in a sense, I think they are portrayed in that way on the show. But as the show goes on, we kind of see the friendship between them, the community, the camaraderie that they have, even with Song Ye-jin's character, even though she was technically the outsider, but they were able to rally up for her, and they always stand together during difficult times. I think every scene with them, it was so entertaining to watch, because they're not only like really funny, witty, but also they're just very human, because they each have their own priorities in mind. Like, they want to take care of their family, they want to survive, they want to have enough food to put on the table. And I think it was just a good, realistic look into what life is like in a small village like that. The show just feels a lot richer because all of these characters, except for the villains, have both good and bad sides to them, and it made it very believable. And it's a reminder that ultimately, at the end of the day, we are all humans. And I think that is a I think it's a good message to send, especially in a world that is full of so much hate and anxiety today. It's a good reminder that we are all the same. Okay, the third and last reason is that this show, it has very good payoff for each plot line or like symbol that they set up in the beginning of the show. Like nothing is ever without an intention. Every single little detail, little prop, it all comes back in the end, and that's why the ending is satisfying, because all these loose ends are being cleanly tied up, and then you know exactly how you got here, which is unlike this other show called Game of Thrones. Like if you've seen the last season, you know they didn't tie up the loose ends really well. Okay, so here are some examples of the sweet payoff. I want to first talk about the two antagonists, Song Dan and Gu Seong-jun. Dan, she didn't know how to love herself in the beginning because, as we all know, she was the fiancé of Hyunbin's character, and she was just obsessing over him all these years since she was a kid. But in the end, she learned to love herself, and in the end, she even had this line where she was like, oh yeah, being single is the trend now. The other character, Gu Seong-jun, he was very morally questionable in the beginning, but we slowly find out that he's actually really insecure inside. And there was this beggar kid in the village, I don't know if you remember, but the first time this kid basically, the character of this kid basically served the purpose of showing that Yejin's character was a really kind soul, like she gave food to him, and it also served the purpose of showing that the wiretapper was also a kind person deep down, because when he was wiretapping, he heard everything. He was very touched and moved. But in the end, this beggar kid came back because when Gu Seong-jun, he was running away from the bad guys, he asked if this beggar kid could help distract him. And so they basically sang this song about, you know, being alone with no one to rely on in this world. And then Gu Seong-jun was crying in the corner. That moment basically made the goal of this character very clear. He is someone who is insecure, and he's someone who wants love, because he always thought that if he dies, no one would care. But then, in the end, when he dies, Dan was really sad for him. So in a sense, it's that he learned to love someone else, but he also had that love reciprocated back to him. So these are two complete character arcs for two antagonists that we were supposed to hate in the beginning. So I thought that was really good, and again, it adds the richness to the story. Okay, so that's all I have to say about Crash Landing on You. I think it was a really good quality Korean drama that kind of gets you thinking about the relationships between different people and what fate means to you. And it is obviously very high production quality as well, with very talented actors and actresses. And yeah, check this out during this time of quarantine, and I hope everyone is staying safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!